Hi there everyone, welcome back to On the Flip Side. My name is Adam Shawwalker, your host, and today I've got something that I've been wondering how to approach for a little while now. For those of you who have gone back and watched my very early videos, first of all, thank you, and you really didn't need to do that. Also, probably don't do that. They are very hard to watch. But if you did look into those early videos, something you may have noticed was that I had completely avoided giving scores to albums after I was done reviewing them. The original idea and design philosophy of this channel was meant initially as a way to sort of prop up analog mediums as a whole, and the idea was that I would only review an album that I personally owned on vinyl or cassette. However, I very quickly noticed that almost all of the reviews that I would put up were generally quite positive, sometimes insightful, but usually could be summed up as, yeah, you know, this album is pretty good, but, you know, these tracks do these things, check it out, it's all pretty cool. Which at a base level was a pretty okay way to start things out. But what happens when you only review albums that you personally own a physical copy of is you pretty much only have good things to say, because why would you own records that you hate or even kind of dislike? And I think maybe a few decades ago, yeah, that was something that would happen, because most of the time you don't actually know what the music on the disc sounds like until you get it home. So you could potentially have a few dozen albums you just absolutely dislike or hate sitting on your shelf. But in the case of the modern day 2023 music industry, most albums that you can go out and buy are between 30 and like $50. And usually for the stuff that is really worth owning a physical copy of, it ends up being on the higher end of that range, and sometimes it can be pretty far past that range. And with the accessibility of music on streaming, it's kind of pointless to buy certain albums. And so maybe a year and a half ago, I made the decision to rate albums on a scale of 1 to 10, or sometimes 0 to 10. And also, to be frank, yes, the format that I use with the addition of a 1 to 10 ranking system does draw some pretty glaring comparisons to other music critics. But I think at a base level, the format that I am currently operating within is one of the most efficient and streamlined formats that is out there. What I really did not want was to be one of these YouTube music guys holding up a CD with all of the album liner art, flipping through, reading off all of the liner notes, including band personnel, because frankly, that's fluff and that's bullshit, and it's not particularly good fluff. So I had decided that at the end of the day, what really matters with the majority of these albums is how the music sounds, what it has to say, and what kind of ideas are driving these records. And so, with some minor exceptions here and there, that has been my very basic approach. Now, one of the main issues that I can see with this is that the majority of my audience is American, as am I, obviously, and the American school system has completely ruined the idea of a 1 to 10 ranking system by drilling into people's heads that anything below a 7 or 70% or a C is a failing grade. Obviously, a D isn't a failing grade, but in the case of the relatively high-stress American schooling structure, it may as well be. There's this idea that a 9 to a 10 is an A, 8 is a B, 7 is a C, 6 a D, anything below that is just an absolute failure. And what I think this is unintentionally done has made it seem like these reviews 1 to 10 are much harsher than they actually are, or at least a lot harsher than I am intending them to be. And don't get me wrong, there are times where I will absolutely shit on an album. That happens. But there's also been a lot of times where I'll give something a like 6 or a 5 or something, and people act like I've insulted or killed their grandmother right in front of them. And I get it. Arguably, music critique is a silly thing to be doing, but I am a believer in quality control and objectively good and bad music. Saying that all music is subjective is bullshit. There are albums that are absolutely amazing, life-changing records across the board, and to let some schmuck tell you that these absolute cornerstone records, albums that are so permeated with pop culture that you don't even think about them anymore because they are so present, are on the same level as, I don't know, the latest Red Hot Chili Peppers record is inherently, I think, dishonest, and I think that reflects an incredibly simplistic, padded worldview that individuals with a subjective viewpoint generally hold. And we can dig more into philosophy, but in this context, that's largely pointless. The point of this video is to help explain and contextualize my thought process when giving an album a rating, and why. So in very simplistic terms, you can look at this scale from 1 to 10, 5 right in the middle of the road, sort of like a bell curve. Most albums that exist, I think, float towards the middle of this scale at 5. A 5 is an album that I don't love, nor do I hate. It has redeeming qualities as well as issues that make me not not really want to have any interest in revisiting a project with the exception of maybe a few tracks. And the lower on this scale you go, down all the way to the bottom with a 1 is the less likely I am to revisit and get some enjoyment out of a record. Basically 1 or sometimes 0 are absolutely irredeemable garbage, albums that should in fact be made to look bad because they are awful. But the inverse of this is true as well, with the scale going up to 10. As of this video's recording date, this channel has given no 10s to any albums yet. But in my opinion, what makes a 10 out of 10 for me is an album that is completely genre defining, an album that creates a basis for growth in one's sound and helps to elevate creativity as a whole among that genre's contemporaries. And while I think there are some records that I have covered that have come close to that territory, I have yet to personally cover one that I feel like is a truly perfect album in that regard. So we have 5 as right in the middle of this scale, right in the middle of the road. Not good, not bad, and either way on the scale you go, we have an increasing or decreasing enjoyment of an album. There are albums that are higher up on ranking with songs that I do absolutely hate, but there are also albums that I almost hate entirely, but may really like 1 or 2 songs off of. Anyway, that's basically the gist. That's pretty much the whole basis of thought for this channel. If you can, in fact, handle some nuance in your thought process when it comes to album reviews, then I can assure you that this channel is probably your speed. Anyway, more reviews to come. I've been pretty burnt out lately, and I've been trying my best to get things uploaded with some solid results thus far, but you'll have to forgive me on the slower upload pace at the moment because I'm pretty fried. I've got a couple of ideas for projects that I am hoping will come together more and be a bit more tangible soon, but in the meantime, thank you all so much for watching. I hope that this video was enlightening to anyone who was curious enough to check it out. Let me know what I should check out in the comments below. Remember to like and subscribe, check out my Instagram, my Reverb, and my Depop. Links to all of those are in the description below. Thank you all so much again, and we'll see you on the flip side.